All right, so today we get to sit down with Erin Sparks.
This is Auto Collabs.
Who is a marketing director, BDC director, kind of almost what I can tell from her LinkedIn profile. She covers a lot of territory. Paul, how did you get in touch with Erin? How did you get to meet her?
So I met Erin, and I think this is kind of my relationship of the group, but through the Auto Genius Network, actually way back when I was still with Nelson, and I can't remember who kind of introduced her to that group, but just quickly realized that she had some chops, and as marketers go, it was like an early conversation. It was like, so what do you exactly do? And it was like somewhere between everything and all the everythings, which is normally the way that kind of marketers go. So I'm excited about this conversation because normally what happens when you start talking to a marketer, you realize, oh, they do a little bit of everything somewhere around the dealership, because it's kind of that, it's a role that especially a lot of smaller groups or single rooftops kind of becomes the catch-all for a lot of different things. But there's just really savvy people that take that to heart, and I'm excited to hang out with her, because I'm guessing some of that would come out in that conversation from my knowledge of her in the past.
I really like it when we get to talk to someone who literally is doing the work every day. And, regardless of how many things in the store that is, the perspective is like of the marketer is usually in the middle of the scrum, right? They're always looped in all these different areas. So like they kind of see and hear and usually are confided in by a number of different people in the store. So I always like to have conversations with people who are in the middle of the scrum. So we hope you enjoy this interview with Erin Sparks.
All right, we're already laughing again, and we're hanging out with my fairly new friend, Erin Sparks, who is a member of Auto Genius and also a marketing director at DeNooyer Chevrolet and Ford. Erin, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. One of the fun things that we always get to learn in our industry is just how connected and disconnected our industry is. And Paul was telling us just before this call that there's like actually 38 DeNooyers. No, I'm kidding. Just a couple. But you have the pleasure of managing a couple of them from a marketing and service BDC perspective. But enough about now. Let's talk about before, because I'd like to hear a little bit about kind of how you came into the retail side of the automotive industry and what your history has looked like from that perspective.
Yeah, so I am originally from Wisconsin. I have to tout that first because I'm all about Wisconsin first and foremost, but that's all right. Besides that,
so what's your favorite cheese? No,
sounds like into the real stuff. Just get rich. Tell us about
everything
cheese.
is about food with you guys, right? Come on.
Yes, pretty much. End of podcast.
And we're done. I lived in Wisconsin for most of my life, moved down to Florida, and lived in Florida for a couple of years, started working down there in marketing after graduating. And then I came back and lived here in Michigan. I live in Kalamazoo now. And I started out here in Kalamazoo working for a local media and publishing company that is part of a larger organization that is nationwide. And the first 5 years I was a sales associate. And then the last 5 years I was in marketing and management within that organization. And much of those 5 years I was blessed and able to work with the automotive industry. So I like that side of that because I have a little bit of a different perspective in the automotive industry, because a lot of people they start out in the dealership side of things. And one of the things that like annoys the crap out of me is that when somebody says like, oh, you're not from automotive, so you wouldn't know. And I was like, yeah, but people still like to be respected and like to work for a company that they like and want to work with people that do things in a way that they feel are respectable. And so, I mean, there's a vast majority of what automotive looks like all across the board. There's the guys that are the epitome of the used car sales guy. And then there's ones that are far off of that as well too. But I think that backgrounds like mine are great for automotive because you can fall into that trap of saying that, like, yeah, well, you wouldn't know because you're not from automotive. Like,
right. What was your,
actually, it doesn't matter.
what was your experience in automotive prior to starting to work in the industry? Like growing up or as a young adult, right? What was your experience with dealers or buying cars? We've never asked that question. So this is the first.
Yeah. Well, I would say my formative childhood years was very much framed from my dad as a master certified technician.
Oh, well, that helps.
And yeah,
we're all like, oh, okay.
Oh, just that.
Yeah, just that. I learned how to drive a stick on a '67 Camaro RS that
Respect.
Come on now.
My dad bought the month before I was born. And when I was about 15, it was drivable. It's always a work in progress, right? If you have an older car. So I learned how to drive a stick on that. And we went to car shows. We did, all of the things that something my dad would love.
So kind of like steeped in like motorhead culture more than automotive culture.
Yeah. I mean, like, can I change my own oil? I mean,
Dad
taught me how, but I'm not going to. But
I appreciate that.
So, like, I mean, there's an appreciation and a love for automotive. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm capable of all of that.
Well, it's like Gene Simmons, just because he's a rock star, we don't expect his children to also be rock stars. Like maybe he's got a tone deaf kid. It's like, whatever. Pick your own path.
So, I mean, I think, and my dad is a Chevy lover, so he was real happy when I'm working at a Chevy store. So
he was like, I knew I raised you right.
Gotta love those domestics.
Yeah.
Can I touch on something? Sorry, I'm just like, I need to go back to what you initially said, because this is a narrative that we need to hear more of in this industry. Like, needs to be more broadly accepted that here we are in a profession where in one breath, we're all like, yeah, I got out of prison a week ago and just kind of fell into automotive. Like it's in one breath saying it's open to everyone. But then there's this club of people that are like, you don't get to have a say because you didn't come from automotive. It's like, dude, none of us in this industry came. Henry Ford didn't even come from automotive until he was in automotive. When did you assume the identity of, like, when did you accept I am in automotive? Do you know what I mean? Because like, I feel like it took me a good 10 years of being in it to finally be like, I'm in automotive. Like, I guess this runs through my veins. Did that happen in the Motorhead years, or was it not until you officially moved into dealership?
I think probably when I really moved into dealership, because then I felt like I had ownership of something. Like I was telling you earlier, today I was talking with our fixed ops director about something that, in my opinion, needs to be fixed, right? And it needs to be done because it's the right thing for the customer and it's the right thing for that portion of our business. But I guess maybe half of me says like I've accepted that I'm in automotive, but like there's also like this part of me that says I have a love and appreciation for having an experience outside of automotive. And so bringing that and keeping that part of me alive helps my automotive.
Yeah,
the dealerships that I'm at, right?
What of that experience? Because I think even keeping that at the center for you and for other people in automotive, especially marketers that come from outside of automotive into automotive, what of the like pre-automotive marketing experience are you either seeing is still behind or that you're able to like lead from the front with in automotive, knowing what you've known of other marketing ecosystems?
Yeah. Like something that came to mind right away is when like the sales team would be like, but yeah, we make a lot of calls. So like, yeah, we make a lot of calls. And I was like, have you been in any job that is sales outside of automotive? Because like everyone has to make a lot of calls. Because you're not alone in that. I love that. You like, you know that you have to make a lot of calls, but like,
you could have ended it there too and just described a generalization of a whole generation. Have you had any job? Like just hard stop. Have you had any job? You got to talk to people.
Well, and so like sometimes, you know, like you can fall into this thing where they're like, yeah, but in automotive, you have to talk to a lot of people. And I was like, it was a requirement for us to talk to like, I don't know, 60 people a week or something. So like, yeah.
I get it. Having a job involves work that really goes along with the job title.
But so AI, like, Paul.
Right. It's true.
So I don't know. I just love that they're like automotive and specifically in dealerships, like sometimes the best person for the role might be somebody that's not been in automotive because it brings a new perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it.
I love it. So from a marketing perspective right now, what have you been doing recently that's kind of challenging norms or things that you're really working on and seeing? You know, you're a member of this Auto Genius community that has a bunch of top marketers in the U.S. kind of all solving problems and figuring out the best way to do things on a daily basis. What are you like hands in the dirt working on right now to push the boundaries at your stores that's like making an impact, or you're hoping makes an impact because you're trying something new? What are those things that you're kind of digging your teeth into?
Yeah. Two things come to mind. From a overall arching dealership space, when I came into my organizations, they were very heavily focused on the OEM message and what offers you were going to talk to them. Now, this was, you know, a couple of years ago, but the thing I continue to preach, I think my F&I manager, Corey, can like imitate me by word for word and sound exactly like me. But I say often we have to tell our story because the only thing that separates us from the Chevy store down the street is what we believe and how we operate and why we do what we do. And so that's one of the bigger changes that we've implemented in the last, 3 years or so, is every time we go into a change or we look at doing something different, especially in marketing, my question is like, what's the story? What do you want people to know? And please don't tell me that you want to tell them that wiper plates are $19.99, because that's cool and like also a good message, but that can't be the only message. So because a lot of what I have always seen in that is like everything is price related, everything is offer related, and while there's a time and a place for that, it should be like 80-20. 80% story, 20% offer. So that's one of the bigger things that we've changed here. Another thing that we're working on and trying to figure out is at one of our other stores, a Ford store, we are doing mobile service. There are some dealerships in the nation that are doing an outstanding job at mobile service. We're trying to crack that nut and figure out how to do it the best way possible that is in line with our business and our standards and the way we want people to see us and understand us, and not falter in the outcome of what that customer gets at the end of the day. So,
mobile service is super complex. I'm guessing that I don't know where you're at in that equation working with that team, but I'm guessing it is taking a significant level of involvement from internal and external partners to collaborate to make that happen. What have some of those conversations been like with, whether it be tech partners or hardware or software or internal teams, and how has your team kind of created the communication patterns to bring something like that to market? Because it's not as simple as we got a technician and a truck, send them, right?
Right.
How have you navigated the complexity?
We have the technician, we have the truck, and then we get there, and what if there's no internet? or it's like 1 bar of service. Have you tried to do a recall that is a software update recall with 1 bar of service? Because I can tell you it doesn't work. And also, if it's in like a unit that is a non-gas powered unit, let's say, that if you don't finish it correctly, you could very well leave the vehicle as inoperable.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
I mean, these are big things that you got to think through. I didn't like, that's not even on me. That's on our, that's on our team, the whole team that's trying to figure these things out. But that is part of the communication. So I also work with our BDC team on that. And so we've got to work with the BDC to know, like, they have to be a little bit more knowledgeable, because when somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to do a recall, can I do it mobile service? They have to learn a little bit more about those recalls to know, is this actually something that requires software updates? And then what do they do? What do they tell that person? What do we offer that person? Because they knew about our mobile service. Okay, we got them here. Now we can't do anything with them on mobile service. Dang it. So, we gotta find that balance between letting people know what we can do, getting them to want to do it, and then servicing them well.
Following through on it. Right. In a way that is fulfilling the promise that you made with all the stories and all the awareness. Because there's an element where if you have like a really terrible website and you have terrible marketing, the bar that you have to like jump over in order to wow somebody is much lower.
Yeah.
But the better your marketing is and the better your storytelling is and the higher the expectation, right? Now the bar that you have to jump is a lot higher. And I've seen this before where someone will have a terrible online like presence, but they have really great reviews. And then they actually switch to like this really sophisticated marketing and better website, and they feel like the reviews start to go down a little bit. And I think that's because the expectation is higher with the better marketing. And so I mean, it's definitely a bar that you're setting for yourself, and like that challenge. I love how you straddle like operations and marketing, because those two things should always be in lockstep. Because if you have a marketer that's not in touch with operations or vice versa, right, you're just setting yourself up for a bad customer experience, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and marketing thankfully gets to like run the gamut of all of the different parts of the organization. And they are one of the firsthand people to see the reviews that are coming back and the surveys that are coming back. And I can tell you, I lay in bed at night going through our comments on different social media posts that there's likely nobody else in the organization doing that. And getting to see the feel and the sentiment. I'm the one that monitors our chat tool on our website and sees, when our service or our sales teams or our BDC are picking those up. What are they saying? What are they wanting to know about?
This makes me think of, so a pal of mine, Marcus Sheridan, I love the way he positions, there's a division between marketing and sales and operations. And to your point, Paul, and what you're saying, Erin, he positions it as there's no such thing. There needs to be a revenue team. Businesses need a revenue team. And
I like that.
The revenue team consists of marketing and sales and operations and all of the different facets. But it's kind of like what you're saying, trying to solve problems with, your fixed department. They need to understand that some way, somehow, shape or form trickles back to revenue gain or revenue loss. And similar to how you're telling your story, making promises that you either can fulfill or can't fulfill, like everything maps back. But traditionally in dealership, it's like, no, I'm on the sales team, therefore I don't need to know what marketing's doing, or I'm BDC and I don't need, and salespeople are separate. And we see that a lot. It's like, no, actually all of you are on one single team. It's the revenue team. And that reconditions how everybody thinks about working together. Interdepartment working together. And this is what you're saying makes me think of how you're bridging that gap. And I think it's, fantastic. So,
yeah.
So I think it's also,
Cirilla's like, you just made me feel good inside.
Thank you. So it seems to me that I know across the board that the marketing position isn't always a respected position inside the store. A lot of the time, the marketing staff can become order takers, tech support, the people who process a co-op. In your store, it's obvious that there's a level of respect for the work that marketing does. And in turn, you seem to really internalize the work you do as the marketer as an important one, right? If you're laying in bed and you're checking reviews because that's your role and you're watching that angle for the dealership. Why do you think that respect exists in your store? Like, what's the history of the marketing department? Because I would love it if we can help broaden the horizons of some of the people listening to this, and maybe those who have a marketing department, who would be in charge of a marketing department, might begin to think a little differently about how they can integrate their marketers. So again, the question there is, why is the respect exist? Why does it exist in your stores? Like, where did that start, and who carries the torch?
Yeah. Before me, they had a marketer that I know she was here for 20 odd years. Did a lot of, they didn't actually even call them a marketing director. I don't think it was more, it was a communications director. And in my head, when I walked into this role and this position, my goal was to always be digging, because there's got to be something or someone that is always looking for more in every department and then bringing it back to that storytelling. Because not that there isn't ways for the organization to gather as one, but who else is going to do it if I don't, is my mentality. Is who else will go ask a question of service, because it just doesn't feel right. And because I saw a review and then noticed something as I was walking through the service line, I have that perspective that somebody in service lane doesn't have, because I don't live there every day, but I kind of do, right? Like, and same thing with sales, same thing with parts, same thing with, just the look and the feel of the brand as a whole. Like, because I live in all of them part-time, I have a responsibility to speak up and dig when something either doesn't feel right or whether it seems like there's opportunity, and that brings everybody together. So that's my opinion on how I should operate. And if there was something I would tell somebody else in marketing, is that you can easily fall into the trap of being the person that just does co-op and gives numbers from Google Analytics at the end of the month, and plans the events. And I do all of those things too. But,
check. Yeah.
But also, like, you can expect to hear it from me if I don't think it's right. And I'm going to tell you, because it's a responsibility I have to the organization, that I give that, because that's what I think they should expect.
I love it. We've got one final question for you before we wrap. We've had so much fun hanging out with you. I want to circle back to something you said earlier about the importance of coming up with your story, because it's the true differentiator between your store and the maybe the competitor down the street. Historically in our industry, we are shy of the idea of picking a lane and realizing that we can't please everybody. Because we realize a vehicle is a utility, it's a freedom, it's something that should be accessible to everybody. We sometimes position that and say, well, we should try and please everybody. We need every customer on planet Earth coming to our store in Kalamazoo to buy from us and nobody else. But inherent in telling your story, you realize as a marketer that that's going to resonate with some people, and that's going to condition them to want to work with us, but it might also repel other people. So my question is, how do you as a marketer reconcile for the dealer to help them understand we're not going to get everybody? Inherent in telling our story, we will attract some and repel others.
I think what my message is always try to focus on is the good, right? So good attracts good. Good doesn't always attract bad, but sometimes it does. Like, there's somebody that's always going to be out there to be like, oh yeah, you said that you're a salesperson. Like, we have a guy, Rich. He is be loved by every single person that ever touches his atmosphere. And the other day we had a guy in there that was like, well, Rich didn't do a good job for me. He didn't give me enough on my trade. He's a terrible person. And I was like, have you met Rich? Because I don't think you would say that if you met him. Like, he's not a terrible person at all. And so, like, as long as there's more good than bad, I'm not focusing on the bad. We're just going to continue to grow the good and measure that good as best we can. So
that's amazing. Well, you are certainly a beacon of light in the industry. It's been so much fun hanging out with you, Erin. Thanks so much for joining us on Auto Collabs today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, suspicions confirmed, because it does look like Erin Sparks literally touches every element. I loved her. She had the little comment at the very end of the interview on that last question that you had for Cirillo, that she was like, oh, I'm actually part-time in every department. And I think
it's so good.
Wearing that hat is actually really key, because then what it gives is her the leverage to have those conversations across fixed ops and sales and every department and every level of every department, because it then places her in there. It's not like this, oh, she's over there in marketing, right? It's like, oh no, she kind of has a role here. We see her often. She's engaged. She's engaged with things when they're working well or when there's opportunities. And I think that probably more people in more departments across automotive, not just marketers, can take that to heart and go, oh, well, I'm the service manager, but I got a part-time role over here in service.
That's right.
Because as to your part, Michael, we're a part of the revenue team, right?
Yeah.
And if that was the role that and the hat that a lot of people took, I feel like those barriers to customer service might actually come down a lot quicker.
I love
growing.
No, you go ahead.
I love the revenue team idea. I know you said it wasn't yours, but if you didn't say that, I'd be like, Michael Cirillo said that. He's so smart. Revenue team. I just love that mentality of it is now. Use it 3 times in a sentence, not in the same sentence, I guess. I love that idea of the revenue team and the evidence of her taking responsibility for the things that are important in the store. And she talked about she's like, I'm the one that's up at night reading the comments and reading reviews because no one else is doing it. Her understanding that, hey, her role as the marketer is to understand what the consumer is saying and being the bridge to go back and try to fix those things. Usually it's reviews, typically speaking, right? Like when you have to address one, usually it's because something went wrong. And for her taking the onus to go address that as part of the revenue team, knowing that the customer review leads to operations, which leads to better operations, which leads to better customer reviews, which leads to revenue. So I liked watching that whole thing progress as she started to talk about what she does.
I was LinkedIn creeping her profile. She's got a couple of funny memes that to me kind of sum it up. One is, if you don't have 2,413 files in your downloads, do you even work in marketing?
So true.
And the one above that was Little Miss Marketer with 253 plus tabs open. And I'm like, that's so the staying up normal. Late at night, like that level of ownership, what's open in those 253 tabs and in those downloads, a bunch of screenshots that you find late at night as a marketer where you're like, this would be so good for the management to hear, knowing full well they're not going to do anything with it or even look at it. And so you carry that burden as a marketer. And so
fired. Wow.
But I mean, I'm just saying, between everything and all
between
of
you, me, and the fence post and everyone else
anyways,
listening.
I mean, such a fun conversation with Erin's. Of course, we hope all of you listening and tuning in enjoyed that conversation. On behalf of Paul J. Daly, Kyle Mountsier, and myself, Michael Cirillo, thanks for joining us on Auto Collabs.
Welcome to Auto Collabs. Why are we recording?